UK summers are getting hotter. In 2022, we passed 40 degrees Celsius for the first time on record in the UK, and we've been having increasingly hot summers. So then there's a new wave of research asking the question most parents haven't really thought about before. Could extreme heat in pregnancy and early childhood affect how a child's brain develops? It's an unsettling and scary idea, but let's look today calmly at what the evidence actually shows. If we should believe it, should we be a bit fearful? And just as importantly, what the evidence doesn't show. Welcome back, my name's Joanna. I'm a mum to a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. Sorry, she's just had her first birthday. I feel like I was just pregnant. Anyway, I am making short videos on academic research papers, data, on anything parenting topics. Pregnancy, outdoor play, education, learning, health, anything that I'm interested in, that we can make informed decisions and become better parents together. If you like that idea, please do hit like and subscribe. I'd love to have you join along the journey. Let's look at the study. So this study was published in 2026 in Nature Climate Change by Kai and colleagues. It's a big, over 100,000 children aged 3 to 5.5 years old across 551 Chinese cities. The researchers estimated how much heat each child was exposed to, both before birth and in early childhood, using temperature data tied into where each child lives, and compared that to a developmental screening measure. So they found that both prenatal and postnatal heat exposure were associated with a higher risk of what they called suspected neurodevelopmental delay. So let's hold on to that word, suspected. It matters, we'll come back to it later on. The relationship was a J-shaped, so the risk was lowest in a comfortable middle range, and that steeply climbed as the temperatures rose. To put a number on it, compared with the lowest risk temperature, extreme heat in the hottest 5% was linked to about 35% higher increase during pregnancy and 53% higher risk in the window from birth to age 3 years old. Those numbers sound alarming, so we're going to be very precise about what they mean in a moment. First, this study doesn't stand alone. A large 2025 review in Nature Medicine pulled together the evidence on heat exposure in pregnancy and found that it's linked to outcomes like preterm birth and also low birth weight, and those themselves are established risks for developmental difficulties. Other work using brain scans has linked early life heat exposure to subtle differences in how certain brain regions grow. So several independent threads point broadly in a similar direction. Why might heat matter? The proposed mechanisms are still hypotheses, but they're reasonable ones. In pregnancy, heat stress may raise the risk of early or complicated birth, which can knock on to development. In babies and toddlers, extreme heat can mean dehydration, disrupted sleep, physiological stress at a time when the brain is growing the fastest. There may also be effects on the placenta during pregnancy as well. So none of this is nailed down specifically. That's biologically plausible, and it's part of why researchers are taking this seriously rather than just dismissing it as coincidence. So how should we trust it, or should we trust this study at all? So this is where we do need to be calm, because it's so easy to hear 53% and feel terrified, especially in climate change and feeling like the end of the world's coming, because trust me, sometimes I do feel like that. Let's look at the strengths first. So the headline study is enormous, and it's geographically spreading, which gives real statistical precision. There's a J-shaped dose-response pattern. The risk does rise as it gets hotter, and that shape does make this genuinely more believable than just a random blip. And crucially, the biology hangs together as well. We already know about heat in pregnancy, the link to preterm birth, and preterm birth being linked to developmental risk. So it's a coherent change, it's not just a lone correlation. Now, there are some serious caveats. First of all, this is an observational study. It can show how heat and developmental risk move together, but it can't prove heat itself is the cause. Secondly, the phrase suspected neurodevelopmental delay comes from screening questionnaires. It's a screen, it's not a diagnosis, it's looking at symptoms and at flags that children who might need to have a closer look, but it will always overcount. Third, the exposure is estimated from where a child lived, not from what they actually experienced. Two families may have the same hot day, but they might have two completely different experiences. One might have aircon and air conditioning, different houses, hours spent indoors. Personally, if it's really hot, I am going straight down to a cafe where there's aircon. I am not gonna roast in my house. So there's a real error baked in there. Fourthly, and this is quite a hard one, is that heat rarely travels alone. It often clusters with air pollution, humidity, lower income, poorer housing, and so tellingly, the work in the very same Chinese cohort is also linked to air pollution and independently to developmental delay. So untangling the heat from all those other factors, that's very tough in this field, and there's no adjustment that could do this perfectly. And then there's a question that matters mostly for us. Well, me, I'm in the UK. Much of the strongest data comes from China and from hotter countries. The same temperature does not carry the same risk here. And to be honest, there's not a UK developmental cohort study on this yet. So there's a real gap in the research for the UK. And that's why I treat this as an emerging area that we should be watching rather than, on the edge of our seats, scared. For any individual UK child, the absolute risk for a warm spell is small. The research is really about population level patterns and where a warming climate might be heading in the future, not a verdict that one hot week has harmed your baby. So as parents, what we should be doing here is a sensible response to good hot weather care, the stuff that keeps babies safe, comfortable, regardless of what the long-term science is concluding here. So in pregnancy, during hot spells, keep cool, stay hydrated, be in the shade, avoid getting overheated. For babies and toddlers, keep them cool, out of direct heat, keep bedrooms as cool as you can, watch for signs for heat stress like drowsiness, fewer wet nappies, look on the NHS website, I'm not a doctor. Hydration done right, so exclusively breastfed babies under 6 months don't need water, just feed them all the time. Your breast milk adapts and becomes more watery. Formula fed and older babies can be offered small amounts of cool boiled water, toddlers plenty of water. Non-negotiable is that never leave a child in a parked car, even for a minute, even in the buggy with something covering them. The heat can get trapped inside there and it can get very, 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 very dangerous very, very fast. Plan around the heat, so on hot days, shift to indoor time, go outside in the morning or early evening. Use shade and hats. Don't ever feel like you need to push through a heat wave just to get the kids burning off energy. It's not worth it. Keep perspective, so keep comfortable and safe. The developmental research is very early and mostly from other countries, so at the moment don't start panicking. As the UK does experience more heat waves and they become more common, it's something to be prepared for and not frightened by. I suspect that aircon in the UK is going to have a big boom, so that's where to put your investments. If you found this calm, balanced, hopefully you're not too fear-mongered, please do hit like and subscribe. If you have any comments about this, please do let me know down below, and otherwise I'll see you for another video. I'll see you later.